call came at 6:42 p.m. It was the kind of time when the city slowly shifted from routine to reflection. In Emma Carter's apartment, the light from the setting sun stretched across the hardwood floor, slipping between the edges of furniture like something trying to hold on a little longer. Outside her window, Chicago was beginning to glow, headlights flickering on, windows lighting up one by one, the hum of life continuing without pause. Emma stood near the kitchen counter, one hand resting lightly against the cool marble surface. She had just finished rinsing a glass, droplets still clinging to her fingers when her phone vibrated. She didn't look at the screen. She didn't need to. Something in her chest tightened before she even picked it up. A quiet instinct she had learned not to ignore. She answered without saying hello. There was a pause. Not long, just enough. Enough for everything inside her to shift. When the voice finally spoke, it was careful, distant, controlled in a way that made it worse. Words were said, necessary ones, measured ones, but Emma barely heard them in full. She didn't need to. The meaning reached her before the sentences did. And just like that, something steady inside her life slipped out of place. The call ended quickly. No dramatic goodbye, no lingering silence, just a quiet disconnect. Emma remained standing, phone still in her hand, staring at nothing. The room felt different now, too still, too aware. She set the phone down on the counter and turned toward the sink. The faucet hadn't been closed all the way. A slow, steady drip echoed in the quiet space. Drip, drip, drip. She watched it like it mattered, like counting each drop might keep her grounded. Emma didn't cry. Not yet. She had always been good at managing moments like this, compartmentalizing, staying calm, staying reasonable. It was how she survived difficult things. She would organize her thoughts, break the problem into pieces, find something practical to hold on to. But that night, none of it worked. The silence didn't just stay in the room, it followed her. From the kitchen to the living room, from the living room to the hallway, from the hallway to the bedroom. It clung to her like a shadow she couldn't outrun. She tried to distract herself, picked up a book, put it down, turned on the television, turned it off, opened her laptop, closed it again without reading a single word. Nothing stuck. Her mind kept circling back to the same empty space the call had left behind. Eventually, she reached for her phone again. Not with intention, not with a plan, just instinct. Her thumb moved across the screen, opening her contacts list. Names blurred together as she scrolled. Friends, colleagues, distant family members. Each name came with expectations, concern, questions, advice she wasn't ready to hear. Emma paused. She didn't want solutions. She didn't want someone to fix anything. She just didn't want to feel alone in it. Before she could decide what to do, a message appeared at the top of her screen. Hey, Emma, just wanted to check in. You crossed my mind today. Lucas. She stared at the name longer than she meant to. Her first instinct was hesitation. Lucas was 22. Too young, she had always told herself. Too easy to talk to. Too kind in a way that felt unguarded. She had met him months earlier at the Community Arts Center, on the north side of the city. It had started as something simple. Weekend volunteering. A way to fill time that work couldn't. The center was small but lively, filled with local artists, rotating exhibits, and a steady flow of people who came and went without much expectation. Lucas had been there from the beginning, helping organize displays, setting up events, balancing everything between his college classes. At first, their conversations were casual. Art, books, small observations about people who passed through the gallery. But over time, something shifted. Lucas listened differently. Not like someone waiting for their turn to speak. Not like someone trying to impress. He paid attention. Fully. Emma had noticed that long before she realized how much she valued it. Now, staring at his message, her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She could ignore it. She probably should. But the quiet inside her felt heavier than her hesitation. So she typed, "I'm not okay." The reply came almost immediately. "Do you want to talk? I can listen." Emma exhaled slowly, not realizing she had been holding her breath. That was all it took. They talked that night. At first, the conversation moved carefully. Like both of them were aware of the space they were stepping into. Emma didn't explain everything, not the details, not the full weight of what the call had taken from her. She didn't need to. Instead, she spoke in pieces, about feeling tired, about carrying more than she let people see, about plans that never quite turned into the life she had imagined. Lucas didn't interrupt. He didn't rush her. Sometimes he responded with quiet understanding. Sometimes he let the silence sit between messages, as if he knew she needed the space just as much as the conversation. Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. The sound against her windows filled the room in a way that made it feel less empty. Hours passed without Emma noticing. For the first time since the call, the tightness in her chest eased just slightly, but enough to matter. When they finally said goodnight, the clock read 1:14 a.m. Emma set her phone down on the bedside table and stared at the ceiling. The heaviness was still there, but it had softened. Like sharp edges had been rounded, just enough for her to breathe through them. The next morning came too quickly. Emma woke to the same weight in her chest, the same quiet pressing against the walls of her apartment. But something felt different, subtle, less suffocating. Her phone buzzed beside her. "Hope you slept okay." She smiled before she could stop herself. It surprised her, that small automatic reaction. She sat up, leaning against the headboard, and typed back something simple. Days passed. Then weeks. Their conversations became part of her routine. Not intense, not overwhelming, just steady. Lucas checked in. Emma answered. They talked about his classes, assignments, deadlines, moments of doubt. She talked about work, long days, small frustrations, occasional wins that felt bigger than they should. Sometimes they joked. Sometimes they shared things that felt unexpectedly personal. But there was no pressure, no expectations, just presence. And somehow that was enough. Emma began to notice changes in herself, small ones at first. She laughed more easily. She didn't dread mornings the same way. She found herself looking forward to the quiet buzz of her phone. She told herself it was friendship. Just that, nothing more. And for a while she believed it. Until the night they met for coffee. It was after an art opening, one of those evenings where the gallery was crowded and warm, voices overlapping, people moving in and out with glasses in hand and opinions ready to share. Lucas had suggested it casually. Just coffee. Nothing complicated. Emma almost said no, but she didn't. The cafe was full when she arrived, the air thick with the smell of roasted beans and conversation. She spotted Lucas immediately. He stood when he saw her. A small gesture, but it stayed with her. He looked different, not in a dramatic way, but noticeable. Taller, maybe, more grounded. His voice, when he greeted her, carried a steadiness she hadn't fully registered before. They talked like they always did. Easily, naturally, words overlapping, thoughts moving faster than either of them could organize. Time slipped. The noise of the cafe faded into the background. At one point, Emma realized something that unsettled her more than the call ever had. She hadn't thought about it. Not once. Not the call. Not the weight it had brought. It had simply disappeared from her mind. The realization hit her quietly. But it stayed. When they stepped outside, the air was cool, carrying the faint edge of the approaching night. They stood on the sidewalk longer than necessary, neither in a hurry to leave. "I'm glad we met," Lucas said. His voice was calm, but there was something careful in it. Emma nodded. "Me too." She walked home alone, but her mind stayed behind, replaying the moment again and again. She knew that pause, the one before he spoke, meant something, and that scared her, more than anything else had in a long time. Because this wasn't something she could fix, or organize, or reason her way out of. So she did what she always did when something felt too uncertain. She pulled back. Replies came slower. Messages became shorter, more neutral, more distant. She told herself she was doing the right thing, that she was setting boundaries, that this needed to stay simple. Lucas didn't push, but he noticed. She could feel it in the spaces between their conversations. The pauses, the slight shift in tone. Life moved on. Work demanded attention. Friends made plans. Emma showed up. She smiled. She participated. But at night, when everything quieted again, she felt it. The absence. The missing rhythm of something that had quietly become part of her life. And for the first time since that call at 6:42 p.m., the silence didn't just feel heavy. It felt personal. The call came on a Sunday evening. Emma had been sitting by the window, a blanket draped loosely around her shoulders, watching the lake in the distance blur into the gray sky. Chicago felt quieter on Sundays, like the city itself needed a moment to breathe before the week began again. Her phone buzzed against the table beside her. She glanced at it, already knowing. Lucas. For a moment she didn't reach for it. She had been expecting this, just not knowing when it would come. The distance she had created over the past weeks hadn't gone unnoticed. She had felt it in every delayed reply, every shortened message, every careful attempt to keep things from becoming something more. Still, seeing his name now made her chest tighten. She picked up the phone. "I don't want to be a problem," the message read, "but I feel like I did something wrong." Emma closed her eyes. There it was. Not blame, not frustration, just honesty. And somehow that made it harder. "You didn't," she typed back, then paused. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she searched for the right words, something clear, something kind, something that wouldn't make things worse. Finally, she added, "Can we meet tomorrow?" The reply came quickly. "Yes." The park by the lake was nearly empty the next day. The sky hung low, heavy with clouds that threatened rain but never quite delivered. The air carried a chill that settled into the quiet spaces between breaths. Emma arrived first. She sat on a wooden bench facing the water, her hands folded in her lap, fingers interlaced tightly as if holding on to something unseen. She had rehearsed this conversation in her mind more times than she could count. None of the versions felt right. Footsteps approached from behind. She didn't turn immediately. She didn't need to. "Hey," Lucas said gently. Emma looked up. He stood a few feet away, hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket, shoulders slightly tense. There was a hesitancy in him she hadn't seen before. Not uncertainty exactly, but awareness of the moment, of her. "Hi," she replied. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Lucas sat down beside her, leaving just enough space between them to feel intentional. They both looked out at the water. Gray meeting gray. "I didn't expect this," Emma said quietly. Her voice felt steadier than she expected. "I didn't plan for you to matter to me." The words lingered in the air. Lucas exhaled softly, his gaze still fixed ahead. "I didn't either." There was no defensiveness in his tone, no attempt to argue or explain, just truth. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of small waves lapping against the shore, filling the gaps between them. Emma let her thoughts settle before continuing. "I think it just happened," she said, slowly, without either of us noticing where it was going. Lucas nodded. "That's what it feels like." Another pause. This one heavier. "We should talk about it," Emma said finally, "before it becomes something we can't control." Lucas turned slightly toward her, giving her his full attention. "I don't want to pretend it's nothing," he said. "Because it's not." Emma swallowed, her fingers tightening in her lap. "I know." The honesty between them felt fragile, important, and a little dangerous. "It's just," she continued, searching for the right words, "there are things we can't ignore." "Like what?" Lucas asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Emma let out a quiet breath. "Timing," she said. "Where we are in life. The age difference." The words felt heavier spoken aloud. Lucas leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful rather than reactive. "I've thought about that."